Hey folks, today we will be looking at unit tests and in particular if you have macros that do ref and sources. And so we're going to kind of explain what this is all about. You can see here DBT has, there's documentation that says if you are unit testing a model that uses the star macro, um, and then the star macro has refs and sources and so on, it's going to actually replace the ref. This isn't actually exclusive to the utils.star. It's kind of any time you have ref in your macro, then you are going to have to do an override like this. So let's look at a quick example so that it is more obvious what's happening. Here I've got a foo, which has select one as input. I've got a multiply table, which is 2. And here I've got pretty simple. So we select the input from ref, we multiply it by the multiplier from the multiplier table. Okay. Now, this is going to be ignored for now, and I'll show you what it's all about later. Okay. So here I've got this, and then if I build, or rather, let me just run my model bar first, just to build it. Okay, model bar works. Pretty straightforward, nothing going on. And then I've got a unit test as well. And we can see here, I've said the input full, multiplier tables 2. So 2 times 2 is 4. If I do a test, then we can see it working as expected here. Okay, and then that one came through just fine. No problems here. Everything is as expected. Now, I'm going to show you a macro that does a run query and retrieves some results back. So you can see this macro here, we pass in some sort of ref, and then we say which column to pick from. DBT is going to run this query, is going to then resolve this whole thing and then return the value back. So if we run this query on multiplier, this value should be 2, which will be returned to the caller over here. So this is kind of a pretty common pattern, I guess. Some folks will have something that looks like this. So you set a value by fetching something like this. So we fetch, this is the macro that I just showed you. This is the ref to the multiply table, and then the column is called multiplier, as you can see over here. Then we can sort this out. Instead of doing it like this, we can just say times the multiplier. And if we compile this, we can see that things work 100% as expected, which is great. Now, if I do a dbt compile, just to look at all the stuff that's happening, then let's look at some of the commands. The first thing we see is something that looks like this, right? Select multiplier from the multiplier table. And that's because obviously from our run query over here. So we did a run query, retrieve the value back, return it as 2, and then we put it kind of template in place over here. Okay, so compiling is fine. If we run our model, then everything, pretty much works as expected. We did that run query stuff, selecting multiply from the table, and then injecting 2 into the value over here. Now, what happens if we try to do a test? Now, here you see we get a fail, right? Essentially, the test output is it shouldn't fail. But what we see here instead is, instead of doing what it should have done, which is select multiplier from an actual object that exists, now it's attempting to select multiplier from this kind of syntax here, right? So that's what this whole thing is trying to tell you. It's trying to say that if you have a ref, then essentially DBT is going to take this out and it's going to replace it with a string that looks like this. So obviously this is going to fail, right? Because this is not an actual object that you can kind of select from. And that's pretty much what that whole error is all about. Okay, so what can you do about this? The documentation say that if you have a macro that kind of has refs in it, you have to provide an override. So what this override says is, I go to my model, I look at my macro, call fetch value from ref, and then what is the value here? So when we are doing a unit test, then it is going to override and just return the 2 exactly like this, which we know will work just fine, right? If we try and test now by just providing the override like so, Then now we get everything as expected. You can see here, previously we tried to select because of the run query. Now we said, please just override it. Just provide the return value of 2 straight away. So there is no need to do that select. And so our unit test has worked as expected. Now if you have really complicated macros and run queries and stuff, you know, perhaps you put the whole select statement in your macro or what have you, then potentially you are not going to be able to use this unit test functionality. You probably need to re-architect or rewrite your model code if you want to use this unit test function. Thank you.